Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. This one with Frankie and I, and we have a very special guest today. It is Zach Segars. Zach, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube on Let's Talk Draft
We're
with
live
Joey
on
and
there, bro.
Frankie.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I'm in the Joey slot. It feels tainted. It feels
Wow.
lesser, but I'm ready to shine it up.
I hear that all the bad takes come from that corner.
Right there,
all
they
the good ones
emanate.
are more the upper left, the bottom, but the upper right. There's something about that corner, man. You're just gonna be
Just so everyone knows,
This corner stinks. It's like
I mean-
you go into your friend's musty car and it smells like Funyuns. That's kind of what this corner is.
It's Funyuns corner.
We are literally watching hate happen right in front of your eyes. If everyone was wondering what hate looks like, you can look at the left and right side of your screens on the top. Again, please go follow Zach at Zach Segars or Zach_Segars, right, Zach? That's correct.
On Zach_Segars on Twitter, Zach Segars, all one word on Threads. Go follow me over on Threads because Zuck is paying people. Give me those follows. I'll follow you back.
And then Frankie at Frankie Films, both tremendous follows. Everyone that would be watching right now knows both of them. I want to get into the conversation today. Frankie, last time we ranked the AFC quarterbacks, how do you feel? How do you feel about our list? We were going back and forth. Sometimes I took when we disagreed, I took the trump card and I said, no, we're going to put him here. And then we rotated and then it was your turn. And you're like, okay, no, Joey, you're completely wrong. You're stupid. We're putting him here. How do you feel our list turned out?
First of all, our list, flawless. I mean, come on now. It's us. It was only going to end up as perfectly as it could be. I think on the other end of it, the AFC absolutely terrifies me. Going through that list as a Broncos fan and one of the people that doesn't get to have one of the elite or great or above average quarterbacks sucks. It is absolutely terrifying. But man, doing the NFC makes you feel a little bit better. Like, wow, there's this whole other conference that God knows who the best quarterback is. I mean, we have a pretty general idea, but he's also part of one of the best offenses. This conference versus the other conference is just kind of just a mess. So a bit more I feel like there's going to be a little bit more arguing this week. Last week, it was too easy to just be like, oh, well, these guys are all super good. And it was just kind of splitting hairs on who's great versus who's elite versus who's the best, Whereas this week, I feel like we just have a lot of guys rolling around in the mud and we're just going to see who's the prettiest pig.
Yeah.
Prettiest pig. I like it.
That's good.
I will ensure there's more arguing. So no one worry about that.
Okay.
Zach, did you check out the list by chance?
I don't have it in front of me. You'd have to.
You don't have to have it in front of you, but did you see it at any point?
I did see it at some point.
What was your initial thought? Were you disgusted? Were you happy? Were you okay, they're smart? Were you stupid?
I thought you guys did a good job. I mostly agree with you guys. I thought there was none that I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Off the top of my head, none that have stuck with me though. I'm sure I disagreed with plenty, and I'm going to disagree with you guys plenty on this. I'm very excited.
As the resident Russell Wilson hater, where do you think Russ would be on our tier ranking? Do you think he ends up being an average quarterback this year?
I think he can be above average with Sean Payton. Some of that's, I think, Sean Payton helping, but I look at that above average, looking at where I talked about this earlier on Let's Talk Broncos. I think there's kind of a group of 9 guys that I would have comfortably ahead of Russ, a couple, maybe 3 guys I'd have comfortably below Russ. And just a slew of 24 guys in the middle where I could see them going up, down. I think it's really a mess. Or there's guys like Kirk Cousins that are locked in, but they're locked into the middle. I think he could reach that range. That. I think the Cousins-y 11, 12 range is probably the ceiling for me.
So, okay. Right. So
I would predict he's more average, 18.
Well, everyone heard it here first. You believe in the Russell Wilson comeback. You're all on board. You're let's ride, and you're cooking in the kitchen. You're feeling it.
Well, here's the thing. I think there's going to be a bounce back, but I also believe in reasonable team building, which would say don't give this guy a rolling guaranteed contract of $55+ million for the next several years when you can get out of it just next season. I think, will it look better this year? But let's acknowledge, yes, it will. But let's acknowledge that Sean Payton doing that, and Sean Payton can do that to a quarterback that doesn't cost $60 million on the decline.
Okay. So Zach giving us a little sneak peek in there as well as to where Kirk Cousins might rank on his NFC tier list. And that, Zach, you led us right into it. We're going to be ranking NFC quarterbacks today, AFC last week, NFC this week. Is there any general thoughts of the differences between AFC and NFC quarterbacks? Frankie, we'll start with you, man. What are your general thoughts and differences? Do you think it's a lot weaker? Do you think it's better? Let me know.
It's definitely a lot weaker, but I'd say one thing that kind of stood out to me is the AFC when we were going through last week. I don't think we went through many quarterback battles. We didn't see many camp battles. There weren't many teams that were having two quarterbacks that were going to be vying for that starting spot. The NFC, there's like 4 or 5 teams that have either a rookie, a year 2 guy. You think of guys like the 49ers that have arguably, 3 quarterbacks. Seems like it's definitely going to be Purdy right now. But there's a few teams in this NFC where I think it'll be fun to kind of discuss, like, man, they might go with this guy now, but maybe they get to week 6 and they end up rolling with somebody else. That was, I'd say, the biggest difference for me. There's a lot more teams that seem to be trying to figure it out, whereas the teams in the AFC have it figured out and are now just trying to figure out how do we maximize who we already have, I think that was easily what I saw that took me back a little bit.
Okay. I think that's definitely fair, Frankie. I think you bring up some valid points there. Zach, what do you think? Do you have any takeaways? Just looking at that NFC tier list, what are your general thoughts about the group as a whole? You're muted.
Classic, Zach, you're muted, Segars.
Classic, Zach, you're muted, Segars. God damn it. I think it's very messy. There's a lot of movement, I think, in this list because you look at, like, I think some of the tent poles of this group, it would be like a Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, like just guys you could pencil into the top of the NFC quarterbacks the last couple years here. And now I think they're totally unknowns. Then you've got like the Jordan Love, Sam Howell, like even Justin Fields kind of to a different degree, Desmond Ridder, like Brock Purdy group where like maybe we've seen some of them, but I don't know if we really know what those guys are yet. And I don't know. It's a really funky group. The AFC has less funk to it. And I like the funk.
Huge changing of the guard season, especially with the loss of Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's, these guys that have stood, well, I guess not Tom Brady, obviously, but guys that have stood at the top of this conference for so long, they're not here anymore. There's going to be guys that are going to have to take their spots as the reigning commanders of this conference, I think.
Well, guys, I think that's enough of the general thoughts. Let's hop right into it, and we're going to be ranking, like I said, NFC quarterbacks today. Do you guys want to start in the front, or do we want to start in the back? And then I also think this is important. I want to lay out the ground rules real quick. We will rank them. We are subject to change by the end. If someone pops up and we're like, you know what, they don't belong in the same tier, we can have that discussion where we're moving them down a tier. That's totally fine as well. I think that's something we can do. Do you guys want to start with Baker, or do you guys want to start with who is the last guy there?
This is Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford. Which one would you guys want to start off with? And we'll move our way down.
I'm feeling right to left. How are you feeling about right to left?
Right to left.
Sure. Right to left is more spice, I feel.
I also thought, I just want to point this out, I did download the images, and it did Baker Mayfield's image without a head, and honestly, I thought it was kind of fitting.
Yes.
Like,
okay. So
plays a little like a chicken head cut off type of situation. I thought it was a little funny, so I left it. So that was just a little Frankie side note.
Okay, Frankie is foreshadowing his pick with Baker Mayfield. But Zach, let's start off with you. Where would you put Baker on this list? We have no one else on here right now. We're starting with Baker.
All right.
Right to left, you said, Frankie. My bad. Let's start off with Stafford then.
All right, we're starting with Stafford.
Here we go. Stafford, man, I think this is like the hardest one to rank in the whole list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put him at average. I think he's going to be an average quarterback this year. I think we've kind of seen the end with him. I don't think he's going to drop all the way down to like replacement level, just be like utter garbage. But I think like looking at these lists, I think the upside's kind of tapped out. I think the injuries have taken their toll on him. He's been beat up a lot throughout his NFL career. I think he's average with the arrow pointing down, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last season, at least with the Rams.
Interesting. Frankie, what do you think? Where would you put Stafford?
That Rams offensive line is atrocious. It is so bad. It was one of the worst units in the league last year. They did add Steve Avila, who is a guy I like, but this is an offensive line that is not very good with an aging quarterback that has struggled with injuries in the past. Their receiving core is Cooper Kupp, Skoraneronk, who I'm probably saying that poorly, but their receiving core is Skronek. Oh my God, I couldn't have been more off. They've got Higbee, so like.
No, I like Skoraneronk or whatever you said. I think that's more fun.
Right. He was easily in that
above
average tier for a while, and when they made that Super Bowl run, but after the injuries, with the regression on the offensive line, losing guys like Andrew Whitworth that were able to help kind of hold that entire offense together for so long, it's hard for me to see him returning to that tier. And again, as we've kind of been commenting on, sadly for a guy like Stafford in the past couple of years, we've watched many of these quarterbacks just leap into that elite, to that great range that maybe we didn't expect to surpass him so quick. It's hard for me to look at a league that consists of guys like Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, this endless supply of 28-year-olds and under guys. And then we look at 30-plus-year-old Matthew Stafford coming off elbow issues, knee issues, shoulder issues, and be like, yeah, he belongs to that exact same tier. So I think average is the perfect spot to put him. Could I see him playing above that level? Completely. But I think it's obviously very dependent on health. And I think the surrounding talent around him kind of taking a step forward.
And I can see him playing below that level too. Really quick. Like I don't think it's the most likely, but if the arm's totally shot and we see, like when quarterbacks go, they go. It's normally a cliff face. If this is the cliff face year for Matt Stafford, wouldn't shock me.
Interesting. All right. I think both you guys made great points, and I think you guys both agree average is the place you guys would put him. But being one of the more interesting ones, right? Because me personally, I'll say I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up in that above average range. I wouldn't be shocked if he was in that replacement level range. Yeah. I think all that in between is a possibility as well. I think
he could be great.
Yeah.
I think he could top out at great. I wouldn't put him at elite, but if he's like borderline top 10-ish, that wouldn't surprise me.
Totally. I mean, this is a quarterback, guys. Yeah, this is a quarterback that the Rams sold the future for, saying we're going to go trade for Matt Stafford because I think they anticipated this great to elite range for a while. They did get the Super Bowl run out of him. That was awesome. Matt Stafford, I think, always has been an underrated quarterback in the NFL, especially in his prime. Mm-hmm. But here's one. We did the AFC quarterback tier last week, and I want to tie this in with Matt Stafford because of just how interesting this one is. I won't do this through every single quarterback on this list, but do you guys think Jimmy Garoppolo, he was a guy on our average list last week, Frankie. So I'll ask Zach, would you put Matt Stafford above or below Matt Stafford? Or I guess it would be Jimmy Garoppolo on this list. You're muted.
Damn.
That's two.
God.
One more you're out of here. We're kicking you off the pot.
Take a shot if Zach Segars is muted. This is a new drinking game. We're going to play it every single week.
I'm so upset with myself. Okay, so Matt Stafford, I think
better or not better than Jimmy.
It's a flavor thing. Yeah, I think Jimmy's downside is a little lesser. I know there's the whole weird foot injury thing. But he just can't stay healthy. I guess I'm less concerned about the current injury, but he can also. Yeah, I'd say Stafford's ahead of him because I don't know if Jimmy G's going to play 8 games, let alone I don't know if he's going to play 7 games, let alone 17.
Yeah, perfect. I completely agree. Stafford, I feel like, is a bit tougher of a SOB. He'll push himself to play through some injuries, which might not be the best thing. But I think the highs you can get out of Matthew Stafford, too, are just higher than you're going to get out of Jimmy Garoppolo. If the injury concerns are pretty relative, I'd say probably got to put Stafford a little bit above him, but not too much, honestly, which is crazy to think about from where we came like a year or two ago with where Stafford was.
Totally. I mean, one of the most highly debated quarterbacks I can remember in recent memory. Oh, yeah. Seriously, ever since he's been a rookie, I feel like people have been having way different opinions on Matt Stafford. But let's move on to the next one. Sam Howell is the next quarterback on our rankings here. Where would you guys rank Sam Howell here? I personally think it's pretty obvious, but I'm curious what you guys think.
And so what I understand is that we're kind of projecting out for this season.
Correct.
What we think is going to happen this season is part of it. So we will finally get to see Sam Howell. That said, I think he still belongs in unknown with upside because there's a little guy in that Washington locker room named Jacoby Brissett who was really, really, really
Sam
good
Howell's
last
a little
year.
guy as well in the terms of quarterbacks, but continue.
Okay, well, Jacoby Brissett's a big guy in that Washington locker room who was a based on like some advanced metrics like EPA per dropback, like a top 10 quarterback last year for long stretches of the season. And I think you look at a Washington coaching staff that with new ownership is all going to be on the hot seat and will be looking to save their job fruitlessly, I expect, but nonetheless looking to save their job. And I think that lines up for Sam Howell getting benched pretty early on. He'll remain an unknown with some upside.
Okay.
Frankie, what do you think?
I'm basing slightly more off of my projections. As people who watch know, me and Joey love going to draft stuff, Zach as well. I was not a big Sam Howell fan coming out. I have not seen much throughout my limited viewings of him in preseason opportunities or through some of his opportunities to play last year that really make me believe, wow, this guy has the potential to really even reach, I think, the average tier. So I'm going to say that I think he's a replacement level player. Maybe he really blows the roof off of Washington this year and they think that like, wow, like this is our guy for us. But I imagine that they are going to be looking to upgrade quarterbacks very soon after this season ends.
Are you gonna make me argue on the side of Tim Wins right here?
It sounds like it, yeah.
You make me come guest on your show and then you ask me to defend.
I mean, Joey's the decider, so you just got to convince Joey. However you can do that.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say.
Go.
We have seen him in an NFL game, and here's the thing. I know Frankie is going to make a much kinder argument for his boy Desmond Ridder on this list, who was worse last year. Both these guys played, and Ridder played more, granted, but who was better while they played? It was Sam Howell. It was just one game. It was a weird Week 18 thing. I understand all that. But you know who else had a little promising Week 18? Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Tim Wins was right. Maybe he is the next Mahomes. But in all seriousness, over the last 4 weeks of the season, Sam Howell ranked third in the NFL in EPA plus CPOE composite. Sorry, I'm looking for Ridder. Ridder ranked 22nd. Out of a crew of 52. I wonder if I can trim that down with the minimum plays. But the point being, like we did only see a little bit of Sam Howell, but what we saw was pretty dang good. I'm a little more optimistic than you.
Okay.
Joey,
I'll be the deciding factor here. I think he's shown me a little bit of enough to say unknown with upside, Frankie.
I think that's fair.
Purely off because of the areas where he's good, I think he's really good in. If he can prove on those areas where he's really bad, because there are a lot of areas where I don't think he's very good, I would put him in that area. So it's a little bit of an unknown because I could see him getting up into a better tier. I think his deep ball specifically, I think, is really, really good. He has certain things to his game that make him interesting. I want to give out some shout outs in the chat right now. Shout out to Cal for being in the chat. We were talking on the Discord yesterday. Cal, if you want, or anybody, please come join Cal, Zach, Frankie, Bree, everybody. There's a bunch of people in the Discord. Come join us. Hit one of us up in the direct messages on Twitter, on Instagram, on anything like that, and join us in the Discord.
And I think the link's in the bio. I think the link's in the bio of the Twitter. It's connected somewhere.
Perfect.
You can find it. Comment on Twitter, reply. We'll get you set up.
Shout out to Kyle Blacker as well. Going back into the Stafford conversation real quick, he said Stafford doesn't have the smarts that Manning has. Without the cannon, he's nothing special. I thought that was an interesting comment. Stafford is an extremely, if you're just looking at the talent he has, super talented quarterback, especially when he was coming out of the Georgia with no Sean Marino and AJ Green. They had a team, and Stafford was obviously a massive a massive piece of that with the number one pick. I still am going to go in the unknown with upside for Howell.
Let me ask you guys a hypothetical, and this is purely about this season. Who offers the Washington Commanders? I literally couldn't think of what their name was because they've had so many changes. Who offers them the best chance of, playoffs? Who would be the best starting quarterback for the entirety of the season? Would you pick Howell or Brissett, not factoring in potential?
Brissett, but they're going to give Howell the look to start the season. And here's the thing. I could see him starting all 18. I'm kind of talking about both sides of my mouth here. I could see him starting all 17 games and then ending up in replacement level because we see more of him. And it's like that deep ball didn't quite take the next step or anything. He's just a mediocre whatever. or he's just a replacement level who's going to bounce around as like a high-end backup, low-end starter type for a while. I think that's a very possible outcome. To me, I think he starts starting a few games. They're going to give it to the young guy early. Right now in camp, it's not even a competition. They're giving all the starting reps to Howell. So he'll start the season. I think at some point there's going to be pressure on Rivera to go with a trusted veteran. I think he'll do that because he's going to be trying to save his job. And I think as a result, we'll see some flashes of Howell, but he'll still probably have something like 6-7 career starts, maybe more than that, like 11, but that's probably not enough to make a determination. And the flashes will give him the upside qualifier.
Cool. Okay. All right. Fair. Let's move on to the next one here, though. Desmond Ridder, the Atlanta Falcons, from the University of Cincinnati. He was a guy that came out of the draft as a very big, you either loved him or you really didn't like him type of guy. There were some people that had him as quarterback 1. There were some people that had him as this is a guy that you shouldn't draft until the 5th round. After his rookie season, where would you guys place him? And we'll start with you, Frankie, on this one, and then Zach, you can take the next one first.
Desmond Ridder, to me, is the next Dak Prescott in the league, a guy that I think just has such a huge mental game to his ability, works the middle of the field so well. I think we're going to see him take a huge step forward playing in his second year with Arthur Smith. I love, people seem to forget, how weird the Falcons' offense was, with a lot of their weapons kind of shifting. But, Desmond Ridder, when he came in, was able to run that offense efficiently. I think that's only going to get better next year. I'm very excited to see what Desmond Ridder can do, and I genuinely believe that there is the chance that with the pieces they have on that team, with some of the pieces they've added to their defense, and with the step forward, I think it's possible. I think we could totally see him in the above average tier.
Okay. But where would you place him, Frankie? Would you put him in the
I'm putting him in the above average tier.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Zach, where would you place him?
That's
all right,
3.
Here's a shot, everybody.
All right.
3 shots.
I want
3 shots. Everybody, please take a shot.
Everyone, I'm worried about your health and well-being here. I'd put him in the above average tier. I was between the above average and average tier. Because I do think we'll see enough to get him outside of that unknown category. I think he's going to start the whole season. And I think he's going to be average. I don't think it's going to be bad, but I think he's going to fall somewhere in that 16-ish range, 16, 17, 18.
Okay.
And I think average. I think he's a guy who might be an average with the arrow pointing up, while Stafford's a guy an average with the arrow pointing down. But I don't know. Above average to me, I don't know. I could see above average. It's right on the line for me. The weapons are going to make him look nice. Arthur Smith is pretty good. I'll leave it up to Joey here. I would slightly lean average.
Average. No one with unknown with upside, and that's where I think I would lead. Okay. So I have to decide between above average and average here.
I can live with the split.
I think that's fair. I'll live to split the difference.
So let's go. We're GMs. Let's act as GMs. We're one of the honored few. You're at the NFL draft, the fantasy draft that was just recreated. Every quarterback that's just got chucked into a pile, and the only 2 QBs on your board are Sam Howell or Desmond Ridder. Who are you taking to lead your team into the future for the next year, 2, 3, 20?
I'm taking Desmond Ridder. It's no question. Zach, Desmond Ridder?
Taking Ridder.
Okay, put Ridder above Howell. Right now, we will do that. And let's move on to the next one. Kyler Murray, another very interesting pick here. This whole entire NFC list, I think, is interesting. I think every single player has a case to be in multiple placements here. But Kyler Murray is a guy that I think everybody had a very, very, very high expectations for. I think he's even shown the potential. He has these flashes where he could be in that great tier. He could be in that elite tier. But has he shown that yet? No. I think we all probably agree there. But where would you guys place him knowing that?
This is tough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you want to go first?
Sorry, Fergie. I'm throwing him in unknown with upside. I'm excited about Kyler Murray.
Wow.
Sorry about that, Fergie. I'm throwing him with unknown with upside because I don't know how much he's going to play this year. And some of this is where he is right now for me. I don't know what he's going to look like post ACL. I think we know kind of what he is on the field, but you also have to factor in that massive contract extension that's now tied to him. Unless the Cardinals straight up cut him, which I think is unlikely. I think they'd trade him. So you've got the contract problem. You've got the proven injury problems. You've got the can't see over the middle of the field stuff. Will his elite athleticism be able to still carry him post ACL? I don't know, but I think it'd be hard to argue that Kyler Murray doesn't have upside. So for me, I think he's textbook unknown with upside, though in a different way than the young guys.
I'm actually going to completely agree with Zach here. And I think such a big part of it, too, is just how much change took place in that Arizona building over the past 12 months. Entirely new coaching staff, entirely new ownership at the top. The coach that hand-selected Kyler Murray and put him in an offense that was super similar to the one he ran in college is not there anymore.
Frankie.
We have not seen Kyler Murray run like a standard NFL offense, and we're going to have to see that this year. And whether you believe in it or not, he is the definition of an unknown to me. So I completely agree with Zach here. I think it's so hard to say one way or the other because exactly like I said, we are going to see him run so many things this year that we have not really seen him do at an NFL level yet, and he's going to have to do them because he's getting paid such a ridiculous high amount of money to do things that, again, we just don't know if he's capable of doing at a high level.
Okay.
And he won't have the full usage of his legs because he's nowhere near 18 months removed from that.
He teared the ACL in like week 15, week 14.
And it's not in the Cardinals' best interest to play him, in my opinion. They have the worst roster in the league. They are headed straight for a top 2 pick in next year's draft, which will be hyper valuable even if you want to continue to build around Kyler Murray. I don't know how many games he'll play this year, so I think he will still be an unknown to some extent at year's end.
I would offer major pushback here, but I am not making the decisions. I will leave it to you guys. He is going to sit.
What would it be? What would your pushback be? Where would you put him? Just that loose point.
I would put him in the above average because I'm not placing any of these people in my brain in their worst possible situation. It's not Kyler's fault that he isn't playing in an offense that best suits him this next season. I think that himself, he is an above average quarterback, even with the Call of Duty, with the potential to get more. But I think he is above average, especially when we're looking at this list. How many quarterbacks are actually better than Kyler Murray? Can I name 16 better than Kyler Murray? If not, I'm putting him in above average. I think that he is going to be there. But let's stick him in there. I think it's fine. I'm not mad at it, specifically because of the unknown word in there. You know what I mean? It's a little confusing. Let's move on to the next one here. It's Dak Prescott, a guy I really, really love. Dak is an interesting one. I think some people literally might have him in elite tier. I think if you talk to the right Cowboy fans, they might say replacement level. Where do you guys have him? We'll start with you, Zach, on this one. Where do you place Dak on this list?
I think he's a great quarterback, and I am ready to go to bat for this one. This is honestly what I was most excited about doing this show for, because it has been I scroll TikTok every now and then, and I get these TikTok lives, which half of the TikTok lives are the most insane acid trip I've ever been on. The other half are horrible sports rankings, and I mean horrible. I've seen quarterback rankings where it's like they've got Goff top 8 and like Dak Prescott at like quarterback 17. And it's driving me crazy. Dak threw a lot of interceptions last year, 100%. Where do you think Dak Prescott, and if you research this, don't spoil it, but where do you think Dak Prescott ranks all-time in NFL history in interception rate?
I have no idea. I would imagine that it's very low because you're saying it. Yeah.
Ninth lowest in NFL history. Yeah. Ninth lowest in NFL history. He'd be a top 9 quarterback currently being top 9 in anything now we'd be putting you in the great tier. Top 9 in NFL history in terms of not turning the ball over frequently. If you take away this one outlier season that he just had, he's top 5 all time. He does not throw a lot of interceptions. It was this one season he threw a lot of interceptions. Do I think Dak Prescott suddenly became a worse decision maker, like considerably worse decision maker? No, you typically become a better decision maker with time. I think he just had some bad breaks. I don't think he had a great second pass catching option in the offense. Now he does. I'm putting my money where my mouth is too. I just made a big fantasy trade for Dak. I swindled a sucker. I think this guy is going to have a huge year this year, and everyone's way too low on him just because of some interceptions. He is, in my opinion, a poor man's Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback, so you're pretty dang good if you're poor man's Joe Burrow.
I agree. I think Dak Prescott is a very, very good quarterback. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 quarter I wish I could tell you how I disagree with you or that you're wrong, but I couldn't agree more, Zach. I am a massive Dak Prescott fan as well. I believe that Dak is arguably one of the closer things we have to a modern day Peyton Manning pre-snap. No one lose their mind, pre-snap. He's very good at getting his offense into the right play, very good at getting them into the right, formations and alignments, and he's very good at beating defenses with his brain, which is something that is just, you don't see it a ton in a lot of the elite quarterbacks in today's league. And I think, like you said, losing Amari Cooper as his pass catching option last year hurt him so much. Adding a guy like Brandon Cooks to kind of replace that role, I think is going to be so big for them this year. I think you talk about CeeDee Lamb stepping into being even a truer wide receiver one. I completely agree. I think Dak Prescott has kind of a bit of a reclamation season, if you will, because even last year, like you're saying, like he did not have a bad season. He maybe turned the ball over a bit too much. Whatever. He was maybe trying to do a bit too much because he was, the offense itself kind of didn't have the pieces or the horses, I think, to make it go the way he wanted it to. But I completely agree. I think Dak kind of reclaims himself back into that great spot. The loss of Kellen Moore and moving to Mike McCarthy as the primary play caller, we could see some adverse effect that could end up hurting him a little bit. But I don't know. Mike McCarthy, while he isn't the most enticing and the most exciting player to have running coach to have running and calling your offense, he's definitely not the worst. He's had some actually pretty decent, statistical years if you look at his pass rate early on, when you talk about early on in his career in Green Bay. I'm not too worried about the transition there. I don't think it'll be as high-flying and explosive as an offense. But I think when you have a guy like Dak Prescott, who, as I've said, is just so good at beating you with his brain, I don't think you really need to have a guy like Kellen Moore drawing up all these super insanely explosive plays,
I think that's true. And I don't know. I do think there'll be some drop-off with McCarthy, but they also invested in the talent, and I think that'll be better. Last note I want to make on Dak, I think the other note or knock I hear on him a lot is he doesn't come through in the clutch. He folds up in the clutch. I don't know how much truth there is to that. What NFC quarterback, look at the other faces on screen, or if you're listening to the audio version, look it up on your phone. What NFC quarterback has the clutch wins on their resume? Not Kirk Cousins. Stafford, I guess, but that's the product of one playoff run. Late in
clutch
his
is
career.
such a weird football stat or thing to acknowledge too, right? Just with how many factors.
None of these guys have done it in the NFL.
Right.
None of these guys have done it in the NFL.
It's not like NBA with final minute 3-point shooting or something like that, where you can truly track a guy's clutch. I completely agree there.
Well, let's move on, guys. I think we spent enough time on Dak here. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. I'm going to ask you guys both a two-part question here. A two-part question. One, where would you put Kirk on this list? And then two, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much worse is he than Dak? I think it's very debatable again on where Kirk ranks in the NFL. So yeah, where would you guys put Kirk? And then just kind of tell me how much worse he is, I guess. So you don't have to do 1 out of 10.
So I would say you go.
I'm so sorry, Frankie. I thought you were pausing. My bad, man. I'll put Dak. I think Cousins belongs in above average. I don't think he's great. I think he's textbook above average, kind of in the same way I said Kyler was textbook unknown. That's what he is. He is a mediocre quarterback. He is Mr. Milquetoast. Watch that Netflix quarterback series. That's exactly what he is. He is Mr. Product of his surroundings. I think he's one of the best version of these Kirk Cousins clones, where you have Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill and Andy Dalton's a dated one. I'm spacing on now. I know we have some on this list. Jared Goff is totally one. Derek Carr, Daniel Jones. But I think Kirk Cousins is one of the best versions of that, squarely above average, in my opinion.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I think he is not a great quarterback, but I think that the surrounding weapons and the things that the offense did to kind of improve this year, this is a team that drafted Jordan Addison to play next to Justin Jefferson, who's the best receiver in the NFL right now, maybe next to Jamar Chase. I think that helps him a lot. I think having TJ Hawkinson in year 2 in that offense helps a lot. I think that offensive line is only getting better. We saw the impact bringing a guy like Cooper. Why couldn't Cooper have come to Denver? God, no one knows, but whatever. He's in Minnesota doing awesome things now, and he's helped that offensive line really become, I think, one of the better looking units that's kind of up and coming in the league right now. So I think I'm still going to I would still say he's in that great tier, but it's like you said, it's not because of him. It's because of his surroundings. His surroundings are just so good to me. Kevin O'Connell, really good offensive play calling coach. I believe in Alexander Madison to kind of play the role of the running back in that offense. And then, like we've said, they have arguably the most dangerous receiving core in the league when you talk about having guys like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Like, it's a very, very powerful offense. You got guys like KJ Osborne as well, Jalen Reagor, Jalen Naylor. They've got guys that can kind of burn the ball down the field, and I think that
Chris Cooper coaching the offensive line, friend of the show.
Exactly. Like, I think that there hasn't been enough things that have fallen off on that offense that I see him being only an above average. I think that the numbers he's going to put up just because of the people that are going to need to eat on that offense, he's going to end up looking like a great quarterback at the end of the season.
Okay, interesting. I think he definitely is in between that above average and great territory. I say let's put him into calling Kirk Cousins great scares me. But the issue is here that in this field, if we're looking at the field as a whole here, he probably is in the better half of quarterbacks.
But he's better half, but aren't we relating him to the rest of the NFL, not the NFC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so but how many AFC quarterbacks are better than Kirk? Kirk isn't the worst quarter. Okay,
so do you?
Really?
I guess
he's 10-11.
We have to kind of go through. We have to kind of speed run a little bit here.
I agree. He's 10-11 in my opinion, but I think that's more the product of like a lot of young guys that we can't quite put ahead of him yet, but I think are going to leap ahead of him. But if you want to put him in great, put him in great.
I think above average works.
Twitter's coming for you.
Okay,
I think above average works. I just won't be shocked if we see another like 4,500 yard, 30+ touchdown year out of Kirk, and we're all sitting here like, I mean, yeah, that's one of the best statistical seasons a quarterback had this year. That's my only thought about it. I can very easily see that happening again. But let's move on.
Fair. Justin Fields, all the rushing yards. How many you got? How much does that matter to you guys? 1 and 2, where would you rank them? And Frankie, we're going to start off with you on this one.
Oh my God. This is so tough. I think I'm going to go. Oh man, having a new receiver helps him so much. I truly believe DJ Moore does help elevate that offense, but man, the injury concerns, his inability to kind of keep the ball safe. I think we did see some slight step forwards in his passing game, but there still are a lot of holes in his game. I am thinking, because I'd say unknown, but I think we do have a relatively good idea of what Justin Fields is. Can he improve? That's a different question. But as far as what we know as his talent level right now, I think we have a decent idea.
But where do you think he's
I think he's average. End of it. I think he's
this
average.
Next season, you think he'll end up average?
I think he'll end up average.
By the end of this, okay.
Yes.
Zach, where do you have him?
Huge disagreement. I'm putting him in great.
In great?
Wow.
I'm putting him in great. I don't like at the end of the day, yes, you have to throw the football but ultimately the quarterback's job is to lead the offense down the field. And I don't care if you're doing that running the ball or throwing the ball. Like it doesn't really matter to me. And from week 7 on last year, Justin Fields ranked 6th in the NFL. I changed it when I was looking at Sam Howell. 6th in the NFL. It was either 5th or 6th in EPA per play from the quarterback position. A lot of that scrambling. He absolutely has to improve his drop back game. But to me, it's not poor decision making or like, oh my God, this guy has no clue what he's doing out there. He can't throw the ball straight. It's none of that. It's a slow process to me. And how do you speed up a process? Doing something more, getting more reps, and also having some more help around you. He had the worst supporting offensive cast in the league last year. And again, over the last 2/3 of the season, just about, that team, once they had their mini bye week, he was producing like a top 7 quarterback from an EPA standpoint, which I think is a solid analytic in terms of like overall offensive output / value. Now you're giving him some pieces. You're giving him a whole offseason to work in this redesigned offense, a whole offseason for Getsy to cook up some more stuff for him to work with. You're giving him a DJ Moore. I think he's going to be great. I'd put him below Dak and Hurts in that great tier. I think he's going to like surpass, like right now I said Cousins is 10-11, but I think some young guys are going to move past him that bump him down more into that 13-14 above average range. Fields is one of those guys.
Interesting.
I have a hard time putting Fields above a guy like Kirk Cousins purely because of the numbers I anticipate. Because I do like a lot of the moves the Bears made this offseason. I love the addition of Nate Davis. Everyone knows how much I love Darnell Wright. That is going to be their right tackle for the next 10 to 15 years. DJ Moore, me and Joey love that guy. I just don't know if I see it being enough for me to really move him that high. I think average was definitely too low. Now that I'm thinking like, man, would I really put him below these guys? No. But do I really see him breaking into that upper echelon tier where we're counting on this guy to put up, including his rushing, probably 35 touchdowns a year. We're counting on him to cut down on his turnovers so much because I think that's such a big issue in his game right now that I don't know if I have the most confidence he's going to get cleaned up this next season. And just, I don't know. It's very hard for me to sell great. If the argument was he was the lowest above average, I could live with it. But it's very hard for me to see him putting up a better season than what I think we can almost not guarantee, but I think is very likely to see out of a guy like Kirk Cousins. Okay. We've already seen it multiple years in a row.
Let me stop in here real quick. As the person that's going to decide where these players rank at the end of the day, I like the disagreement. I say we split the difference. I'm going to put Justin Fields in above average.
Okay.
And then
Can I make an argument for him above Kirk?
Yes.
Last season from week 7 on in EPA per play, right? Justin Fields dramatically ahead of Kirk Cousins. Justin Fields ranks 9th in the league. So I quoted the stat wrong earlier, but 9th in the league at 0.130. Cousins 15th at 0.0541 rather, which like in terms of ranking isn't that different, but Fields was creating like 3 times as much EPA per play for his offense. But if you look at EPA plus CPOE, which is going to factor in passing a little more, weigh the drop back game a little more, he's still ahead of Kirk Cousins over the last 2/3 of last season. And I think he's just going to get better with time. Like the rushing is already so amazing, and I think the passing can get there.
Okay,
that's fair. We're going to put him there. Then, Frankie, the last thing I'm going to executive order here is Kyler Murray will be above both Sam Howell and.
I was curious if we were going to touch on that,
and that's something we have to fix that. For this next one here, guys, we're going to go fast. Jordan Love. I think this one's very obvious. He's going to be unknown with upside. He could also end up becoming replacement level. I think those are two things that are both very big possibilities. I don't see him working his way this next season into any other tier. If you guys have any quick thoughts on Jordan Love, let me know.
I'll give you a lightning round case for above average. The Packers were totally happy to move off of Aaron Rodgers and stick with Jordan Love. They haven't been in past off seasons. We also saw him play this year, and I think he looked pretty good. I also think the offensive infrastructure is pretty good there. I think he'll hit that above average tier by season end. If you want to put him in unknown, that's fine. But I'd at least put him at the top end of unknown.
All right, rank him in these 4 real quick, Zach.
You can put him behind Kyler, but I'd put him ahead of Kyler personally.
No, I'd put him behind Kyler. We'll put him behind Kyler. And then this one I want to actually talk about a little bit here, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that Zach is very high on. Without question. So Zach, we'll start with you. Where do you put Jalen Hurts?
Well, per my pre-show instructions from Frankie, he still wanted me to single out a quarterback for top player. So I'd put him in top player. Don't think he's the top player in the NFL. That's Mahomes. But
it's okay. Just say it, bro. I know how you feel.
I'd put him in the great tier, but I do have him ahead of Dak. Jalen Hurts has gotten, like we always say, development isn't linear in the NFL. Development isn't linear in sports. Man, maybe it is for Jalen Hurts because appreciably year over year, every single year since his true freshman season at Alabama, we've seen him get better and better and better and better. And it ended last year with, by season's end, he's playing like a top 6, top 5-ish quarterback in the NFL. I thought he had a really great Super Bowl. I'm not going to start, and he still has untapped physical potential. I don't think he's maxed out now. I'm not going to bet against him suddenly not developing. I think like coachability is a skill, and I think it gets thrown around too much, but he is preeminently coachable and has all the physical gifts in the world. And man, that's a dream combo. That I love it. I think there's still untapped potential. I don't think he'll ever reach the Mahomes, maybe Allen, Burrow tier, but I think he's going to always be one of the guys like knocking on their door.
Okay, interesting. Frankie, where would you put him?
I don't have too much to add. Otherwise, I just want to emphasize how good he was in the Super Bowl last year. Not many quarterbacks are able to outperform Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He did that. 4 touchdowns. His passing metrics were just incredible. Jalen Hurts had a really good finish to last season. As Zach said, he's just continues to build and build and build on his game every single year. That Eagles offense is still incredibly strong, even with a bit of the brain drain. I think that we're going to see them struggle with. I don't know if they'll necessarily still be like a definite Super Bowl contender. I think they did lose a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. I think, as I said, losing losing like coordinators all over the board hurts, but Jalen Hurts has shown that he can endure. He can just keep improving. His ability to get those scrambles and having one of the best offensive lines in the league is such an unstoppable and difficult force for teams to deal with that, we talk about, like, for a lot of these guys, like we were just talking about the Justin Fields and like how much the passing of it matters, but it's so crazy when you look at, like, man, that Eagles offense really just feels like it can just pound the ball down your throat every single play. Their quarterback is a huge part of that, having the ability to go do these QB sneaks that end up going for 3 or 4 yards, and every defensive player in the NFL is angry about. So I see I was of the mindset that maybe someone could replace Jalen Hurts in this tier, but when you look at the numbers he put up last year and just how I consider that Eagles offense to continue to be as strong as it was, I don't see how you can put any other NFC quarterback as the top guy.
Okay, that's fair. So Jalen Hurts will be the top quarterback of the conference. I think that's fair. Do I think he's that? My hot take, guys, here would be that if Dak Prescott was in a similar situation, he would be right there with Jalen Hurts. I think that he would be neck and neck with Jalen Hurts, if not just better. But that's besides the point. That's besides the point. Jared Goff here. Guys, I'm just going to rank this one because I'm not trying to have Jared Goff conversations here on this podcast. We're putting him in average and below Matt Stafford.
Above average. Oh, you're putting him in average?
Yeah, but in average. And actually, I meant to say
I'd put him in above average.
I'm putting him above Matt Stafford. And here's the reason why I'm doing this, guys.
Above average.
I disagree. Because, bro, if you put
Frankie and I both disagree with you. We got 2-on-1 right here.
Okay, put him in above average then.
You don't want to get to
Goff was good last year, man. Goff was like
nice.
He was pretty good.
With a top 2-0 line in football, with like a top 3 offensive coordinator.
Are we doing that to Jalen Hurts?
With a running game that was like that's what I just made the argument for. Dak, I think, in the similar situation as Hurts, would be right there, if not better than Jalen Hurts.
But I don't think we've seen Goff produce at a very elite level. Not that he's ever been a quarter. Yeah, in perfect situations. But in poor, when the situations have gotten lesser, I don't think we've seen him be atrocious outside of the.
I think calling the Lions a perfect situation is also a bit of a stretch.
I think he's good.
Johnson, a top 2-0 line in football with a running game that was top 5.
Yeah,
with Amon-Ra St. Brown, that offense was humming.
It was humming, yes, and he was a massive part of that. You still need your quarterback to orchestrate.
Okay, how good is the Lions?
Number one offense in the league last year. He's above average.
How good is the offense?
Number one offense multiple seasons. He is probably like the number one offense multiple times. That's hard for an average quarterback.
Do you think? Okay, let's do it like this. Do you think Desmond Ridder could go to Detroit and do what Jared Goff did last year?
No, but I have him.
Because that's what you'd be saying.
I don't really. I'm not picking upside with. Or that's unknown with upside, just over average. That's not.
I'd take Goff over Stafford at this point in their careers.
100%.
And I'd say Goff is closer to Cousins in terms of product of their system, super milk toast, whatever. Isn't going to win a Super Bowl for you, but can win some games for you. I think he's closer to that than Stafford at this point in his career.
Interesting. All right, we'll go roll with it. Let's go on to the next one here. We're 50 minutes in. We still have 6 quarterbacks to go, guys. We have to start hurrying up on these.
Some of these will be real easy. What are we going to say about Carr and Mayfield?
Yeah, totally. Geno Smith here. Geno, I would put him, if we're putting Goff in above average, I'm putting him in above average, and I'm putting him in that same tier with those guys. Where do you guys put him?
Again,
he's one I struggled with. I could go as high as great. I'm open to your argument there, Frankie. He's in that above average to great thing for me. When I was making my list, I had him just behind Fields in great. My thing is, in the same way I argued Fields really came on at the end of last season. Geno Smith kind of folded up a little bit. It wasn't terrible, but he did kind of revert to Geno form down the stretch. I am very excited by what we saw from him last year. Top 3 in big time throw rate, also top 3 in turnover worthy play rate though. So like you kind of got both ends of the spectrum there. I would lean above average. I don't think I'd put him in the Dak tier, but that's for me.
Let me just. Geno Smith was the best deep passer in football last year.
He was.
There is no argument. Okay. Their offense got immensely better. They added Jackson Smith and Jigba. They added Zach Charbonnet to their running back core. I believe they signed another offensive lineman. I could be completely wrong about that. Whatever. Disregard that. I think we saw consistency and so much good stuff out of Geno last year that, like, I don't know, man. I have a hard time saying he's, like, above average works for me. But I do, like, I'll agree with above average. But I just want to emphasize, like, I think he's going to continue to be one of these high-end quarterbacks. I think a lot of Broncos fans, obviously, which we all were kind of, spending all of last year waiting for the wheels to fall off in Seattle. And we were all like, oh, they're saying he's better than Russ now, but wait till that 3-interception game or whatever that we all are hoping Geno does. Didn't really come last year. Yeah, he had a little bit of luck. He had a lot of turnover-worthy throws that didn't end up resulting in INTs every single time. But again, when you talk about some of his efficiencies down the field and what that offense is built to do with having guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, it's a crazy world out here, man. And it wouldn't shock me if we see Geno once again be a great quarterback.
I'd put him at the top. I'd put him at the top of above average, but it's close. He's on the border.
That's what I would do as well. I would put him in above average, the top of it. And man, I don't know. Yeah, we have Derek Carr next here. Where would you guys put Derek Carr? Frankie, we'll start with you this time. Where would you rank
This
him?
might be spicy, but I'm going above average because I kind of like the Saints infrastructure.
Are we ranking the players or are we ranking?
I'm thinking about the players. I think the situation might help the players blossom in a case like Justin Fields, but I'm thinking about the players.
Okay, then he's average.
I'd put him average. I don't think he's so it's like Goff's there. I don't know. I just think Goff hasn't had the same lows as Carr to me. I'd put Carr in average, but he's right on that border. But he's a known, so he's not an unknown with upside. Average.
You taking Carr or Stafford?
I'm taking Carr over Stafford at this point.
I would. Would I take Carr or Goff? Would you guys take Carr or Goff?
I'm taking Carr over Goff all day. I really would too. I had to watch every single week.
We're gonna have to lay some money on a Goff versus Carr season line or something. Me versus you, or we'll get all three of us.
No, like team's too much involved. That's the issue. Team is way too much involved for that conversation.
But like,
you could put Goff like down. I don't know. I think it's close. It's close.
Okay, Daniel Jones. Now this one I think is really interesting here, especially because of who we have in above average. So is he in the same tier as those average guys, those above average guys, or is he above those above average guys? Zach, we'll start with you on this one. Where would you put him?
Not to me. I thought the Daniel Jones hype was a little crazy last year. I think that's a Brian Dable mirage. I think he is above average. And, I think there's maybe some potential for growth there, but I don't know if we were factoring in the contract in this exercise, like who do we want to build it around contract included? He might be like average or replacement level for me, because I think that contract is going to be an albatross. He's somewhere in above average. Like I'd probably put him below Cousins. I would put him between Cousins and Goff. Personally, if you wanted to put him above Cousins, I wouldn't throw too much of a fit.
Okay. Frankie, where would you put him?
I think Daniel Jones is a massive bag of mids, and I think that entire Giants offense is going to be not great. Well, I think Dayball will make it work, but man, I think he belongs in average. I think his numbers last year, as Zach were saying, were just a mirage. When you look at what he actually had to do in that offense when it comes to throwing the ball, obviously the legs played a big factor, but didn't have to do a lot. His surrounding weapons this year aren't very good. I just it really, I with the Saquon holdout, I think as crazy as it sounds, I think Saquon impacts where I put him on this list. I know we're talking about like individual QB talent, but I think like having that extra threat in the backfield on every single play, and also Saquon's ability
it makes
as a
his run
receiving
game
option,
more valuable.
makes his run game so much more valuable. And like, yes, Darren Waller I think will help this offense, but like, man, if they end up not being able to, or whatever ends up happening with Saquon's contract situation, I'm not gonna act like I know all about that right now, but like, I think that could play a huge impact on whether we see him in above average like last year, where he's an important piece in, I'd say, a productive offense, but not a like very important piece in a great offense, if that makes sense. So
I'd put I'm cool putting Daniel Jones in average if we move Goff down there too, because I feel like that Goff fits more with Carr and Jones.
I agree. I'll agree with that. So how are we ordering this, Joe? I think
I know mine.
Okay.
I'm making executive decision on this part.
Okay, Joey, go.
On the adjustments, we're going Daniel Jones 1, Jared Goff 2. Ooh, I don't know.
I hate this.
You're the only one you're the only guy who disagrees on Goff.
Why do you hate Goff so much? What did he do?
Goff's ahead of Carr for the other two of us.
Bro,
so
listen,
Jones, Goff,
the Goff
Carr,
situation, we can't act like that Lions offense isn't extremely talented with one of the best.
Goff got
That's not his fault. You're holding that against him.
No, I know, but why am I considering that part of my evaluation of a single player? I shouldn't.
Jared Goff last year had the NFL's leading rusher, first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver, one of the
he had the leading rusher who was
league.
Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams isn't that great. That's what I'm saying.
It's the Raiders. It's the Raiders that had all those things that I was just listing off.
Okay, bro. Listen, do it then. Put him above Derek Carr. I completely disagree.
We need to figure out a line on this bet.
I had to watch this Lions team literally live every single week of the NFL season. I was never impressed. My roommate's a Lions fan. I watched him live every single game. I watched every single Lions game of the year. Bryce Young, this one's obvious. I'm going to put him in average, above average, or average.
I think he's above average. I think he's a good player. I think Carolina is setting him up well to succeed early. This is a case where I would factor in surroundings, because I think surroundings really impact how young players develop. Carolina's got good surroundings for me. Currently right now, he is unknown with upside, but if we're projecting where we're at in this conversation at the end of the year, I think we're like, wow, Bryce Young looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's going to be in that Geno, Fields, Cousins-y range.
Okay. So I agree. One of my notes here was that I think he probably has one of the more favorable coaching situations for a rookie quarterback that I've seen in maybe the past year or two. I really like all the coaches they brought in, not only in their offensive coordinator, not only in Frank Reich, but I like literally a lot of their positional coaches just to help develop that entire team. But that team has some doo-doo weapons. Those weapons are not very good. And I have a hard time envisioning Bryce Young creating a, quote, above average season out of that. Could I see him at the end of the year, us being like, oh, next year, if they spend money and try to surround their quarterback with some weapons, do we consider him above average? Totally 100%. I just don't know if, again, this team that has Miles Sanders in the backfield that's relying on guys like Terrence Marshall to be big receiving threats for them. It's hard for me to envision a guy like that truly being what I'd consider an above average quarterback straight out of the gate. I think, there's going to be so much change going on in that entire organization throughout the first however many weeks of the season as they try to figure out things with their young quarterback. There's still the chance. I mean, I think we all very much assume that Bryce Young is going to start. Who knows? Maybe they pull a weird move and they let Andy Dalton start the season. You just never know. So I would go more the top end unknown with upside, but I can understand also why it'd be above average, because I completely agree that their entire coaching staff as a whole is built to help this whichever quarterback they picked in the draft get to where he's trying to go. So I'd put him pretty much right exactly in that spot. Where do you think, Joey?
I would put him in a none with upside. I'd also put him behind Kyler Murray, but hey, you know what?
Would you rather, if you're a GM, would you rather build around Kyler Murray or Bryce Young right now? I'd rather build around Bryce Young.
I think that's just because there's more unknown. But
what I know about Kyler is really bad. If I were to put a gamble on one right now, I think it'd be Bryce Young, and if I were to predict who I want to bet on at season's end, it'd be Bryce Young.
The argument pretty much, Zach, because we have to move on here. The argument pretty much is between you and I, and you. Hey, the audience can land somewhere in there. Is Kyler Murray? I think has the higher upside, but also has the lower downside. And
I
don't even know if he does.
I think Bryce Young's play style fits the NFL game better, and we've never seen Kyler Murray have to play a true NFL game for like an extended stretch of his career. So I think that would be my thing. Like, I think Bryce Young fits the modern NFL quarterback better than Kyler Murray does a little bit.
Okay. Well, okay, that's fine. We'll put him above. If you guys both agree, then put him above Kyler Murray. I'm just getting slammed.
I love how much. No, it's good. We'll leave
it. We'll go Brock Purdy next. Brock Purdy, guy that played a little bit last year, didn't play a lot. I don't think he's proven a lot. I think that Kyle Shanahan offense is the most quarterback-proof offense there is in the NFL. There's no offense that is quarterback-proof, but the most, it's Kyle Shanahan. So I'm curious where you guys rank him. Where would you put him?
I mean, we haven't seen enough, so if you wanted to say unknown with upside, I'd be cool with that. I think he showed some intriguing things last year. But I think he's just like a replacement level quarterback. I don't know. I think if you were to remove him from this, because not only is it Kyle Shanahan, but it's like Kyle Shanahan's death lineup with all the skill position talent they have. I think if you put him on most teams, he'd be like in that Teddy-ish range, one of those like journeyman guys, or like Ryan Fitzpatrick, where it's like, if he's your starter, you're not thrilled with it. If he's your backup, you got one of the best backups in the league, replacement level.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys have both said, I mean, it's very much a Rorschach test of, do you consider him to just be like the orchestrator of the offense, or just kind of like the point guard of the offense? Because I think when you think about, like, I won't be shocked if he ends up having some incredible statistics because he's playing with George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and the entire armada of things that Kyle Shanahan is releasing onto NFL defenses every week. So I won't be shocked if he ends up being like above average number wise, but I completely agree. When you look at like who he is as a player, what he really brings to the table, what he kind of allows offenses to do, I think he kind of ends up more in that average replacement level tier. But I mean, like that's completely the debate. Is like a middling quarterback that gets to play with the most quarterback friendly coach maybe ever in probably one of the most talented offensive cores we've ever seen. How much of that really is the QB? Can you really consider him to be great when he's playing with just incredible talent all around him? I'm not so sure. So I'd probably say he's somewhere in the average range. But as far as like the numbers he'll put up, I think you could literally just say Kyle Shanahan's QB will always be an above average quarterback in the NFL because that's what Kyle Shanahan does. He makes above average quarterbacks out of thin air.
Okay. Are we? I just can't. I'm having a hard time incorporating the offense and what everything is involved.
I'm thinking about just the player.
Okay, just the player.
I think consider the offense and everything when I'm talking about Justin Fields, because it's like, how are we allowing this guy to blossom into a great quarterback, and how are we nurturing that development? Which does apply somewhat to Brock Purdy. I think this is going to help his development and help him reach a higher ceiling. What do I think he is as a quarterback? Maybe he's an average starter. I think that would be his ceiling, though, personally.
All right. Perfect. We'll put him there. And then Baker Mayfield to round this whole conversation off. Where would you guys rank Baker? Zach, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh, well, we don't have anyone in replacement level yet, so let's throw him in replacement. I mean, this guy's probably the worst starting quarterback in the league. I think when you're looking at preseason lists, it's like him and Ritter and Howell are kind of lumped together in that bottom, just because guys are like, oh, mid-round quarterbacks that are randomly starting and we're not excited about. He's 32nd starting quarterback in the NFL for me right now. That one was the easiest one for me to rank on this entire list.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not decisively beating out Kyle Trask, I think that pretty much says all that needs to be said. This is Baker Mayfield's fourth team since 2021, since he left the Browns. I will say I put like a little positive and negative note for every single guy. The one positive I will give for a possibility of maybe a Baker reclamation season. This is the best group of receivers he has ever gotten the chance to play with. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, you've got Russell Gage in the slot. I like their tight end, Cade Otton. This is a decent group of weapons for him to get to work with. He did not. The Rams were all beaten up at the end of last season when he finally got to there. When he was playing with the Browns, his best receiving cores were like Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, who, when they were kind of at their peaks, were pretty good. But I think when you talk about Mike Evans, who at this point is looking like a Hall of Famer, Chris Godwin looks like probably a top 15 receiver in the league. Russell Gage is a super underrated slot option. And then I think Cade Otton is an up-and-coming tight end. Obviously, the entire coaching staff is a bit of a question mark. But, I mean, that was the one note I had that I was like, hey, Baker is kind of a guy who does, rely on his outside targets a lot more. He's kind of got that Russell Wilson effect where he doesn't use the middle of the field. You can't really ask for better outside weapons than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So if there was ever a slim glimmer of hope for Baker, that's what I'd say it is. But I completely agree, replacement level, and I think that entire Tampa Bay team will be picking number 1 next year.
All right. Well, that I think this is fair. I'm curious to see where or how the fans will, what they think of our list here.
Justin
Fields is going to get us cooked.
Can I make one adjustment here? Can I make one?
It's not going to be popular in Broncos country, but it's right. I'm happy with it. Like, where will he be next season? He's going to be an above average quarterback.
Let me make one adjustment.
Let's hear it.
Okay, I'm going to make one adjustment here. It's that Dak should move up a tier. He should be.
You think Dak's an elite QB?
I definitely do think Dak is an elite QB. I 1,000% think that Dak is an elite quarterback.
All right. Where are we putting the cutoff for elite? Because I would say Mahomes, Herbert, like guys I don't think we'll debate. Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Allen, we'd all say are bona fide, sure thing elite.
Yeah, Lamar, but we have Hurts and top player of the conference. So, and that's above elite in this conversation.
But I would put him in the great tier.
Right.
Frankie just said, like, we're cheering him based off the NFL. Like, in the terms of the NFL, is he a great elite quarterback? I'd put him as the 6th best quarterback, 7th best quarterback in the NFL. If we're saying Trevor Lawrence and really Lamar, we're saying Lamar's elite, like those 3 guys, I would say are right on the border of elite or great, for me at least. And
I think these two are both great.
I'd be fine put it, and Hurts is in that group.
Last week we had Herbert and Trevor Lawrence as our 2 great quarterbacks. I don't think Dak Prescott is better than Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence. I think
we didn't have him in elite. We didn't have Herbert in the league.
No, we had Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow as our elite QBs. I believe we did top 4, and then our top was Mahomes.
In that case, I'd say they're both great quarterbacks.
Confusing is it's the top player of the conference. That's why move Dak back over to great.
If you wanted to put Hurts and him both in great for the screenshot you put on social media, I think that would make sense. But based on the rules as they were explained to me, that's where I would do it.
All right, fine. I've been stumped like 12 times here on this podcast by Zach and Frankie. Move Dak back into great. Damn. No, I'm just kidding.
I think Matt Stafford belongs.
Anyways, guys, let's sign out here. I would love to hear what the fans have to say. If you guys want to make sure, please let us know. That's at the Let's Talk Broncos podcast on Twitter. You can also follow us on Instagram. We're on everything. If you want to join the conversation, if you agree with me on any of these, please join the Discord. Anyways, we'll start with Frankie, and then I'll move to Zach. Frankie, where can they find your work, man?
Frankie's Film on Twitter. Frankie's Film NFL on Threads, even though who knows if that's even going to end up taking off the ground at this point. Follow us all on Discord. Follow the YouTube. Listen every Thursday. Yeah.
Cool. Zach, how about you?
Yeah. You can find me over on milehighsports.com for some Buffs coverage. And then YouTube, Let's Talk Broncos. Like, I mean, that's where you should be watching this right now. If you're listening to it, head over there. Really want to build up this YouTube thing and would be very grateful to all of you for any support you give us there.
Perfect. Before I sign out here, I want to give a shout out to some of the people in the chat. Shout out to Cal for, joining the conversation tonight. Shout out to Kyle Blacker. Shout out to Aaron North. And also shout out to Denver Blair. Thank you guys for joining the conversation tonight. If you guys want to follow me, you can follow me at JR Drafts on Twitter. That's where most of my work will be. If you care about all of that, please give me a follow. Just make sure you guys are subscribing to the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. Zach, Bree, and I have a podcast that goes live every Monday and Wednesday at the time. And then Frankie and I have a podcast that goes live every single Thursday. But until next time, guys, go Broncos.